You're a startup founder. You think your product is amazing and feel like more people should be buying, but the road is long and slow. It feels like you're stuck. There's always one thing I ask startup founders. Have you talked to your customers? They almost always say, heck yes, we talk to our customers all the time. But what I find is they're either selling or trying to improve their product. These are not customer-focused conversations. If we can get curious about our customers, then we can uncover critical insights that will help us build to the next round. I'm Anna Firmenov, and welcome to Building with Buyers, a show about startup growth where I'll explore how customers help startups build to the next round. Well, hi, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me. I've got somebody back on. Emily Steele is co-founder and CEO at Hummingbirds, but she brought a friend. So Mari Tippman is the head of sales at Hummingbirds. And so I'm excited to have you both here, have a little bit of like the co-founder with the head of sales. And there's just like different things that you can bring to the conversation. So I love that. A little bit of background. Well, first, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Hummingbirds helps brands drive awareness and sales with hyper-local content creators. So the platform actually connects brands with hummingbirds. I'm showing quotes with my fingers. Nobody can see that. And these hummingbirds are trusted friends and neighbors that have buying power and local influence. So people really like listen to them and then end up going to the hair salon, the nail salon, the whatever place to buy product, right? So, I mean, you guys have been doing really well. You just raised Series A funding. Congrats. Just wanted to say that first of all.
Thank you. Yes, we're excited about it.
It's like a rocket ship.
Yeah. Yes.
And I didn't know that that would happen, right? Like our first conversation that we had, you've been on the show before, Emily. Check out episode 198 if you haven't listened to that one. It's a really good one. It's called Impressions versus Engagement, Why Partnering with Smaller Creators Can Actually Be More Effective. And so it kind of flips the thinking on the head of, I need to partner with someone that has a ton of followers versus I need to partner with someone that has that close-knit group that trusts them and they're really good content creators.
Yes.
I love that episode, by the way. Not only because I'm a content creator, but also for more reasons than just that one. Cool. So here in this episode, I'd love to explore the role that customers play in helping startups build to the next round. So I've been having some really interesting conversations with folks, and a role that customers play, I'm on purpose kind of making it broad. The way that I think about the role that customers play, I'm always thinking about customers. That's the first thing that I do is go to startups and say, okay, if we're working together, I need to talk to your best customers. I need at least a handful of people that love you, that bought from you, because I need to talk to them, ask them specific questions so I can pull out insights. And that is going to be used for positioning, messaging, website, go-to-market strategy, business strategy, just like a whole slew of things, right? So, but I did that on purpose. I kept it kind of broad because there are many different ways that startups have customers play a role in their business. So let's get into it. First, before we jump into the role customers play, or maybe that's going to be part of what you tell me, but your recent funding, I would love to understand more. What did it take to get there? What did it take to get that Series A funding?
Yeah. So we consider the last round more of a seed round. We're not quite at our A yet, but it was still substantial. So we've raised over 10 million in kind of the seed funding in totality. Yeah.
Okay, I understand now. So it's seed funding.
Like pre-seed and seed. Yeah.
Pre-seed and seed, but a total of 10 million.
Yeah. So we'll be at the Series A next, but I always like to set the stage, right? Because the things we'll do in prep for Series A and at that stage and beyond are a little bit different than how we think about being in the seed stage. So wanted to level set there a little bit. I think For us, like there's always been the plan to raise more capital as a company. Like we're running really fast. And so for us, as we were meeting with the board, we were like, hey, we have all this traction. We're going to 4x our revenue this year. And our insiders who had already invested were like, hey, we want to be a part of that. And so they primed it around. And we weren't necessarily planning at the time to raise capital, but it made a lot of sense. And for us, just thinking about as leadership team, we're like, it feels easy. We can get the deal done quickly. And we have all this momentum that we don't have to distract ourselves. I think Therese, my co-founder, COO, and I spend a lot of time in the fundraising process. And so the ability to not have to be in hundreds on hundreds of calls and instead work with just a few new investors as part of the round and get back to working and rolling up our sleeves. Since we are still at that stage where we're all like hands on deck and building together. So that was a huge part of it. But the reason everyone was excited is because of the traction, right? And there's so many things that are working. And so much, I give Mari so much the credit. And so her background and being a go-to-market expert and running a few other sales organizations to some impressive scale has really allowed us to figure out a lot of the mechanics. So Mari, I'll just hand over to you a little bit. What's your perspective on that answer?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, the way we were able to move through the fundraising journey very quickly was that we hit a point of predictability within the sales function very, very quickly for our stage. And so I attribute a lot of that to the early stage and putting the systems and processes in place to operate like a much larger company and a much more mature company than we were. So we didn't really need to switch gears to get ready to raise. It was more so staying ready. And that's part of our leadership team culture and schema. Our operating cadence centers around cross-functional data reviews and creating space to talk about everything from top of funnel metrics to middle of funnel metrics to bottom of funnel metrics, broken down by lead source, and action on areas of opportunity very quickly and publicly. We have that meeting all the time internally. We talk about the numbers twice a week. And I think it's really positive and healthy because problems don't live in the dark. And there's accountability. We figure out what's going on. We figure out who owns the metric. We figure out who's responsible for its performance. We figure out who's responsible for getting things back on track when metrics inevitably ebb and flow, and what level of support is required cross-functionally to be able to stay where we want to be from a metric standpoint. And then how we're always thinking about optimizing metrics, right? And what levers can we pull to do something 10x? And where is there room for growth and opportunity? So I think that's a huge part of it is just the operational maturity. This doesn't feel like a seed stage company. This feels like past lives at 20 and 30 million. So I think that was super exciting in a vacuum. But then I also think about the team. Team is a huge piece of the equation. And prior to my time here, Emily and Therese brought on some really talented individuals who were able to get the company to where it was. And then after joining, I was able to leverage my network and rehire a couple of rockstar sellers who've hit the ground running very quickly. And they just get it. And that makes it easier. So when I think about where we are, where we've gone and where we're going, the team just has this track record of success now, and they're continuing to perform at this excellent clip. And that pattern recognition has just been so key in being able to move very quickly.
It sounds like you guys really care about data, right? And you're looking at any blips and something is off here and like what's going on and trying to figure it out, right? Let's understand why we're not doing as well as last quarter or however you guys are analyzing. So data is really important to you and that analysis. How do you think about either one can answer this, right? How do you think about stepping outside of like the dashboards and the spreadsheets and the tracking of the data and not forgetting who you're making this for and why you started this in the first place? How do you approach that other side of data, I suppose?
The qualitative. I think it's an interesting question because we're technically a two-sided marketplace. We sell as a SaaS product, but we have our creators on one side of the house and we have our brands. We're constantly, the theme of this interview is around kind of like customer research. And so we have like a way that we distill information from the calls we have with prospects, with our customers. We see what themes are bubbling up. we are consistently, we have 15,000 creators at this point. And so
Wow.
we have a community. We have a community inside of Circle we call the Charm, which is a group. It's what like a group of hummingbirds is called, which I think is just so delightful. And we're constantly asking questions like, what do you want to see? Where do you have gaps in knowledge? How could we support you to be a better creator? And so we're just constantly looking, having conversations and aligning that with data to say, can we make the qualitative and quantitative make sense? Mari, would you add anything?
I think the only theme I would add is one that a former sales leader in a past life often said, right? It's that people come first and numbers come second. And I think that Emily does an exceptional job of just embodying that at both the company level, the community level, how we show up online. Like the platform's core is authenticity and community, and that guides the decisions that we make internally.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about when you come up with it sounds like you've been coming up with a great go-to-market strategy. Like when you come up with your go-to-market strategy, how do you make those decisions of what you're going to do, what you're going to focus on? Because there's like a million things you could be doing.
Totally. I can kind of kick it off and then hand it back to Emily to talk about the community side of things. But I think where we really started was optimizing the go-to-market model to put customer feedback at the core of everything we did from the early stage so that we could iterate quickly, but I think almost more importantly, iterate correctly, right? When we think about the first piece of the equation being really strong sales and customer success alignment, we optimized to be able to intentionally capture customer feedback and then action it and support it full customer journey, everything from pre-sales to post-sales.
I'm sorry, tell me more about that. Like when you say pre-sale, post-sale, like capture that information, what is the information?
Not to answer your question with a little bit of a story, but I think that the context is super helpful. So, when we started from a go to market model standpoint, we actually, instead of selling annual subscriptions up front, started every customer in our funnel with a 1 to 2 month proof of concept so that we could then understand from their lens where the value actually was and then how to articulate that value back to the pre-sale conversations we were having. So instead of putting this high volume of customers into annual subscriptions, we said, we want to go steady and we want to go a little bit slower. We want to learn what really works, what they like, what they don't like, so that we weren't selling things that were not accurate to the value that we were actually delivering back to customers. So I think that's a little bit just of a different approach that I hadn't really seen run before Hummingbirds. I think the ideation of it was excellent. The team did a great job standing up the bones to do that. And so then once we were able to understand what value the customers were actually deriving from the platform, that helped us inform just through pattern recognition, like who was the right ICP to sell this to. And then we could start getting early indicators of what the happy customers look like from a company composition standpoint. And then we could learn what resonated with them. That once we had that holistic picture of 2 months in, this is what works, we could go back and we could sell that on the front end in a really repeatable way. And that helped us get to message market fit. That helped us create a feedback loop internally to be able to get with product and say, hey, these are the things that people are asking for. How can we make the roadmap more clear around some of these pieces? And then ultimately, by starting with really steady growth, with having that base of customers running a lot of campaigns in the platform and iteratively learning from them, we were able to put the systems and processes in place to support really fast growth toward the end of the year. And I don't think that would have been possible to do what we're doing in Q4 now without having the basis built on a customer feedback loop.
Yeah. So like you kind of, it's like coming full circle. You're taking your customers, you're trying to explore what matters based on who they are, right? So that you can figure out who are we for, so that you can target those companies with those people there, right? So it sounds like you're doing customer research that helps your go-to-market strategy, right? Helps to figure out who your ICP is, helps with your targeting, helps with your sales conversations, helps with your product and like what are you building so that they get the most value from it. Anything else I'm missing from customer research? Does that pretty much sum up like where you see the importance of incorporating customer research?
Well, I think there's the element of the two-sided marketplace too, right? And so you covered it really holistically on the brand side of things, but then with the creators, what do they value in a community like Hummingbird? So Emily, I think from your end, maybe a little bit more there.
Yeah, I think for us, like I kind of shared earlier, it's the consistent communication. It's the ongoing dialogue that you get when you create community as part of your brand and your product. Back in the early days, Hummingbirds was really created because I want to be a hummingbird. I am a local creator. I want to try brands and share them locally. I was doing it for fun, right? I wasn't out there, and I still am not, right? I'm not trying to be an influencer in my city or beyond. I just love the experience of trying and sharing. And I found other people in my own network who also love doing the same, and ask them questions. Oh my gosh, what got you excited to sign up? I would ask other people who are like, no, I'm just not qualified to sign up. What does that mean? Why? What do you think being qualified means? And so those early conversations gave me a lot of clarity at the first 25 to 50 people. And then it was through conversations of them joining or not joining the platform in real life that I think were really important. And I see a lot of people who, are in that early formation of a business or early stages, spend so much time on customer research without acting. And I think that the research component should happen as you're selling, as you're pitching, and continuing to learn and change, or like lock in. Like, yes, like maybe you're not quote unquote qualified because you never post on social media. Don't join our platform. You won't have a good time. So we learned a lot about that from the community side. And we have found over time that there are some of those creators on our platform that really identify with fun, hobbyists, want to do this, want to give back to the community, like feel good, rah, rah. And there's others who are more of that emerging creator persona that's growing and growing, because anyone can be a creator in 2024 and 25 beyond. So I think for us, it's constant. We're always learning. We're always leaning in to say, should this inform our roadmap for our product? Should this inform how we sell, how we pitch? And so I think customer research is such an interesting topic because it sometimes feels like it's an isolated activity. I think it should just be who you are, because customer research at the core is curiosity.
It absolutely is, Emily. I'm so glad that you said that.
Did I tee us up?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to reiterate what you said about how customer research isn't this like one-off thing that like, oh, we got to do that at some point. Oh, when are we going to, like, I don't have time for that. That is the weirdest mindset, honestly, because like you said, it's iterative. It should be happening as you're selling, as you're growing, as you're it's curiosity. And so the problem there, I think I find with companies and startups is that they think that if they do user experience more product research, that they're checking the box on customer research. But that's only one piece of it. As you had mentioned, Mari, you said that it's really important to understand who's your ICP. And in order to do that, you got to kind of analyze who are your best customers and what makes them unique to you and why did they decide to go with you. So those are just not things that you're thinking about as much, right? When you're doing product or user experience type of research. So that's great to hear that that's your mindset. I completely, obviously agree with you because that's like the mindset that I bring to companies. And that's why my clients hire me, is because that is their thinking too. And they just need someone to help with that effort. So awesome. I think you mentioned why you think customer research is important. Let me know if you haven't yet. But from my understanding, it's like it should be you. You have curiosity that if you don't, then that's a problem. And I think a lot of raising your next round, I think part of the success is you've had the curiosity. You're looking at the data. You're like, why is this happening? Let's dig in. What do we need to change? Where do we need to go back? Just kind of like having that curiosity around the quantitative data as well as the qualitative data that you're getting, feedback from customers that you talk to. Would you say that curiosity is probably the main thing?
I think it's a big component. I'll let you add on to that, Mari, but we're doing this as a service. We're trying to be the facilitator of matchmaking really positive connections between these brands and these birds, these creators. And so for us, like, how do we make that better? How do we care? How do we create impact? How do we do something really positive for both sides of the network? And I just think we're always asking questions in our company. We're really collaborative nature and just always wanting to level up as people, as an organization. And so I do think it's just fundamental. And I think the curiosity then leads to focused sprints or focused actions. And then we do it again and again and again. And that's just kind of the ethos of who we are. What would you add, Mari?
I think the only thing I would add is, on the front end, Emily, you talked about our software subscription. And with that, our main role is to provide recurring value. It's great to be able to get customer value one time, but with any recurring revenue model, that has to be continuous throughout the customer lifecycle. And I think the important thing to remember is that customer needs are going to change. So, Anna, to your point around customer feedback being ongoing, what got us here isn't going to get us there, right? So how are we growing with them and how are we providing value every step of the way so that the renewals and things like that are no brainers because we're a partner that they value the relationship in, not just on the front end, but throughout the life cycle.
That's a big reason why I love to share my process of how I do customer research with my clients, because they're going to need to take over and they learn the best practices and they learn what you ask and how you ask it and what you find and what you need to do with those findings. Really, it's part of an iterative process. So it's like a system and you need to bring it back and iterate. So when we work on, let's say, their positioning, messaging, and website, it's not okay, set it and forget it and it's never going to change. If you're doing customer research properly, then there will be things that change over time. And that's okay. That's kind of how it works. Because to your point, Mari, you said things don't stay the same and you're curious and you're learning and customers' worlds change as we've seen over the last few years. Your whole world can shift, maybe not in a matter of years, even in a matter of months, just like everything is changing so quickly these days. So tapping back into that, making sure that you have the pulse on what are these trends that are happening? How do the goals of your customer change or challenges change? What other competitor options pop up or other ways to solve the challenge? Those things come up. And if you miss it, it could be a missed opportunity to do something differently and approach your positioning or messaging or go to market strategy or whatever, right, in a different way. So, what would you say are your challenges? Have you experienced any challenge or something that you wish you did differently or any surprises that you've had with customer research?
I'll take a crack at a response. I think being in the creator economy is really interesting because it's so new and it's still relatively in its infancy. When I started Hummingbirds in Des Moines as part of running a marketing agency, the language is influencers and creators wasn't even what people were calling creators/influencers. It's kind of now synonymous, but that always felt not accurate to me, but it was the best way to portray who these individuals are and were at the time, right? And so I think because of that infancy, there was a lot of uncertainty about what the impact could be from a local creator, even specifically because no one was working with local creators when we first started it because it was such a new, untapped type of creator. And so I think the dynamics of doing research, some people would be like, well, I need these creators to do bottom of funnel, middle, top. I need perfect content. There's all this expectation around what brands need in working with creators, where today I think it's way different. And so we can really drill in our conversations with prospects and be like, hi, what are the 2 or 3 things that you would call a win in working with us? And they have more clarity because it's been around long enough that people understand how to work with creators more and more. But I would just say because the world of creators, influencers is evolving so quickly, it means that customer expectations are shifting and we just need to be sure we're really clear on what they want when they come to us and they come to work with other types of creators.
What's the difference between a creator and an influencer? And do people understand?
I mean, it probably depends on who you ask, which is you can be a course creator and be a creator. And so I think creator feels a little different in the sense I think people feel a little bit more value around the assets or the media they create. I think an influencer is a little more excited to build a big audience that they can reach and impact. I think there's always usually overlap. So it does feel a little bit synonymous in how we use it internally and externally with some of our customers, but it is a nuance that hasn't been overly clarified, I would say.
Yeah. Well, personally, I don't really call myself an influencer. I like to call myself a creator only because I like to create. To me, it seems like that's a more valuable use of my time and impact to this world the influencing stuff comes secondary, I suppose, right? If I'm creating good content, then you're influencing people and the things that they're thinking about or doing. But I personally would rather use creator. So I don't know if there's a shift towards that direction, but influencers are just to me, that's just someone that likes that and that has a huge following and can say whatever. You know who I'm talking about, the people I'm talking about, right? And then everybody's like, whoa, and they start doing things completely different because that person just shifted everybody's opinion on some matter. So great. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I'm so excited for you guys, first of all, with this funding round and how you've been growing. And I've been in touch with you, Emily, for some time. And I just think your business is really cool. I think that there's a lot of value that you bring to companies, obviously. And so appreciate you both joining me today. Thank you. It's been great.
Yes. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to find Emily, you can do so on LinkedIn. I will include a link in the show notes. And then Mari as well, Mari Tippman, I will include the link in the show notes. And then if you want to visit Hummingbirds, you can go to hummingbirds.com. Thank you very much. Okay, Emily, I just stopped recording, but now I pressed record again because we were just chatting that you have a podcast. And I asked you, what do you do with that podcast? Who do you have on? So tell me more about this podcast. What is it called? I wanted to keep this on the down low, Anna.
No, you're right. It's as we talk about customer research, what a great way to do that. We do that through the podcast, Local Marketing School. We talk to our customers and other really cool people who are doing things that started at the local level. They did the local marketing thing, whether they were sampling or starting, putting their product in a local Whole Foods or starting at a farmer's market, whatever it is. And how do you get scale from that local to national to global? And so it's just been a really cool opportunity as kind of the CEO. I don't get to interface day to day with our customers. And so it's just a cool opportunity to ask them questions, really put the spotlight on them, make them feel really special and do it in a way that's really authentic and be able to share their story with other people. So we don't ever ask them to be hey, will you talk about how awesome Hummingbirds is? If it comes up, great. It usually does, but it feels like a really genuine connection to have. And so many good things have come of it. So that's our podcast.
Well, I'm glad that I asked you to tell me a little bit more because that absolutely relates to the topic here. So thank you, Emily, for sharing.
Of course.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Building with Buyers. New episodes drop weekly, so make sure you're following wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me on LinkedIn, Anna Furmanov. Visit my website to learn more about how to turn customer insights into positioning and messaging your buyers will understand, furmanovmarketing.com. And don't forget to leave a review if you're loving the show.